Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. I hope that you are well. I hope you're surviving, I think is the best word for what I'm going through during this summer break. Just trying to get towards Belgium every single day, just waiting and counting down the hours. But we are, of course, halfway through the season, which means we're starting to think about 2022. As insane as that might feel, Formula 1 at this point in the year takes this opportunity in the summer break to have a little look at their drivers, have a little look at their team, and sort of decide what they're going to be doing next year. So I figured we'd go through some of the transfer rumours that are going around the grid and talk about whether or not I think that they will happen over the course of the next few weeks or in the second half of the season, possibly even leaving it as late as December, January before these teams get their transfers done. But I think most teams, because of the rules and regulations changes for next year, I think most teams will want to get their business done fairly soon. The first rumour I'm going to address is probably the worst kept secret in Formula 1 at this point. Toto Wolff never addresses the fact that George Russell is definitely going to be in a Mercedes seat next year. For me, it just seems obvious at this point that George Russell is going to be the man to go to that Mercedes seat. Now, I think this is twofold. I think, first of all, he massively deserves it. He has been absolutely insanely good in that Williams car. Bottas has dropped off a little bit this season, and because there is that rule change, it's about the right time, I think, for George Russell to just step up into that next seat. But secondarily, this is a massive opportunity for George Russell. I think he needs this opportunity now. I think we are looking at him and Lando Norris. Remember, they've been in the sport for a similar amount of time. They came in the same season as both being rookies at the same time, and it's been a very different trajectory for George Russell and Lando Norris. We're looking at Lando Norris at this season, third in the Drivers' Championship, and we're talking about him getting podiums, possibly getting towards getting a win, really rinsing that McLaren for everything that it's got. And of course, George is doing the same at the Williams, but we're not talking about him in the same light. He hasn't got those podiums, hasn't got the experience of being at the front of the grid, apart from that one race in Sakir, obviously. But I think for his career path, George Russell needs to get to a move to Mercedes now. And I think that's really important for him. Otherwise, I could see him falling by the wayside a little bit. As talented as he is, he doesn't have the experience like a Leclerc, like a Norris, like a Verstappen, at the front of the grid, fighting for those positions week in, week out, knowing what it takes to win a Grand Prix is so important when it comes to Formula 1, and George Russell needs that experience now. That obviously does mean I think that he's going to replace Valtteri Bottas, because George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, that seems like a good team. Valtteri Bottas obviously not having yet signed an extension for Mercedes for next season. Where will Bottas go, I think, is the next question that people have on their minds. There's possibly an Alfa Romeo seat with his name on it, possibly a Williams seat with his name on it. And I think that he could go to Williams, because I think Williams are in a position now where they could replace both of their drivers. George Russell is going to move on if that opportunity arises at Mercedes. And Latifi, he's been good, but has he been that great? No, I don't think so. He's been okay. He's bringing money to the team. But I think the most important thing for Williams at this point in time is they have said that they can pick drivers next year, not money-based. They're not going to pick based on what they can bring to the team monetarily. Latifi has been a paid driver for Williams for a few years now, has kept the team above water, and has made sure that the team can actually run. But now they've got an opportunity here to, I think, replace both of their drivers. I think Williams will get rid of Russell, will get rid of Latifi, and they've got an opportunity there to completely rework their team. They're moving into 2022. They're moving into a brand new set of rules and regulations. Let's be honest, Williams have absolutely hated this set of rules and regulations over the past 5 to 10 years. They haven't really shown the pace that they would have wanted to, especially over the last 3 or 4. They've been absolutely atrocious. This is a massive opportunity for Williams to completely rebrand themselves, to completely take a step forward and become a midfield team, a front racing team. This is a real opportunity for Williams to completely change what they want to do. And for me, they should bring Bottas back in. But secondarily, they should be looking at this man here, Pierre Gasly. Now, Pierre Gasly is in a very strange situation at this moment in time. Lots of talk about Pierre Gasly moving into next season and where he will end up. He is a incredibly good racing driver. He has so much experience now of Formula One. He's gone through the highs and lows at each end of the grid, and he has been absolutely phenomenal since coming back to AlphaTauri, since leaving Red Bull. I'd say on form, he might have been the best driver on the grid. And I know that that is a massive, massive statement, but he's definitely in the top 3 or 4 for me. Since coming back to AlphaTauri, he's been absolutely amazing. And he has so many options moving into next year. He could basically pick a team he wants to go to, in my opinion. You know, I think if there was a spot in every single team, he would have his choice of where to go to. Obviously, there won't be next year. We've got Williams with a possible seat for him, and it's whether Red Bull decide to stay with Perez. Has Perez been good enough to keep his seat at Red Bull? That is the debate that is now coming out. You know, has he really shown that he is good enough for that Red Bull seat? Obviously, he's getting on a little bit as well. He's not going to be at Red Bull for the longest of times. Is he worth keeping on for another season, another 2 seasons? Or is it time for Red Bull to just completely scrap, keep Max Verstappen as their number 1? Do they go back to Gasly? Do they bring through a Tsunoda? You know, what are the options for Red Bull? Do they go for Bottas? Bottas is going to be available if he leaves Mercedes. Do you replace Perez with Bottas? It's a very, very tricky. And of course, you've got Albon coming back in to the fray. Could Albon take Gasly's seat at AlphaTauri if he does decide to move on to a Williams seat? Or an Alfa Romeo seat? You know, if Gasly decides to move on from AlphaTauri and try something completely different, build another team around him, let's face it, if Pierre Gasly and Bottas went to Williams, one, that would be an absolutely incredible driver lineup, and secondarily, Gasly knows that he could build that team around him. Bottas would be a very helpful second driver. We've seen it at Mercedes. Bottas probably wouldn't want to play that role again, but he's getting to that point in his career where he's going to, if he wants to stay in F1, probably pay that second fiddle seat. You know, he's not that up-and-coming driver that big teams are going to be looking to sign. Bottas is going to be that driver coming towards the end of his career and helping out other teams. Will Albon come back in to the AlphaTauri setup? Could Albon come back in to a Red Bull seat? If they decide to get rid of Perez and Gasly says no to that Red Bull seat, is Albon the next best choice? I think Albon is in with a real chance of getting back into Formula One next season. I wouldn't have said that at the start of the season, but since we've seen these drivers over the course of the first 11 races, Albon, for me, is a real cat amongst the pigeons. And of course, then we've got Tsunoda. Does Tsunoda stay? Has Tsunoda been good enough, especially when you've got Lawson and Vips coming through at this moment in time? Like, Red Bull just have a wealth of academy talent that is coming to the fore at this moment in time, in F2, in F3, making those steps up. Obviously, Tsunoda's only been there a year. Yes, he's a rookie, but has he been good enough? Has he been good enough to keep that seat? Or, if Gasly does move on, do we see Tsunoda become the most experienced driver at AlphaTauri with a Lawson and a Vips? With Tsunoda only having 1 season under their belt, could they also bring in another rookie? There is a lot going on the grid at this moment in time. Mercedes and Williams are at the real forefront of it for me. If Russell makes that move, that first domino falls, we're going to see a lot of changes throughout the grid. Personally, I think Gasly should take that opportunity to go to Williams if it does arise, and therefore Red Bull have to really assess what they want in the next couple of seasons. You know, is Perez good enough? Can they keep him? Who do you bring through? Why do you bring them through over somebody else? And then finally, I want to talk about Alfa Romeo, because they're also a massive domino in this. Alfa Romeo, similar to Williams, I can see Alfa Romeo with 2 completely different drivers next season. I don't think Giovinazzi has really shown what Ferrari want. Will Ferrari continue to sort of give Giovinazzi that seat at Alfa Romeo? Or will he move over to the Sauber seat? Because that's the thing with Alfa Romeo. There's 2 seats there. There's 1 Ferrari seat and 1 Sauber seat. At the moment in time, Giovinazzi's in the Ferrari seat and Kimi Räikkönen is in that Sauber seat. Kimi Räikkönen most likely is going to retire at the end of the season. There's loads of changes coming into next year. I don't think he'll want to completely relearn Formula One again, especially when he is on his way out. As much as it would be horrible to see Kimi go, he's absolutely one of the most entertaining drivers on the grid. I think it's about the right time for him. But Giovinazzi. Does Giovinazzi move over to that Sauber seat? Because Ferrari, I don't think, will want to keep Giovinazzi in that seat. They've got a lot of drivers coming through at this moment in time. Ilott obviously got some testing time with Alfa Romeo. I think they'll want to bring him through sooner rather than later. They've also got Mick Schumacher, who they will not want in that Ferrari seat at Haas for very long, because Haas just look like a sitting duck at this point in time. They don't look like they're making those steps forward. I know there's been lots of emphasis on Haas really going for 2022 and using this season as almost a bye, but at the same time, you know, do you want to keep Mick Schumacher there in case it all goes wrong again at Haas? We've seen it over the last 5 years that Haas have been in Formula 1. They've been a little bit controversial throughout their time in Formula 1, and they've definitely made quite a few mistakes along the way. So will that happen again? Will Ferrari still want to keep one of their best drivers, up and coming, Mick Schumacher, in that seat? Probably not. So I think Alfa Romeo, we could end up seeing a complete driver change next season. We could see both of these drivers go, and again, that is a massive piece of the puzzle. Does Bottas decide to go to Alfa Romeo rather than Williams? Because he might become sort of the most experienced driver there instead, and therefore they might bring in a rookie rather than somebody else, and he'll be actually the number one driver at Alfa Romeo, whereas at Williams, I think he'd probably end up being a number two. Oh, it's very confusing. It's very, very confusing. There's lots going on the grid, and of course we've got Pourchaire, Ilott, and Schwartzman all in with a chance for that Alfa Romeo seat if they do decide to get rid of Antonio Giovinazzi as well. There is a lot going on. It's silly season at its absolute best. It's wonderful to see Formula 1 coming to the second half of the season where so much can happen. And it's amazing that we're going into 2022 with these question marks on top of loads of different drivers. I'd love to know your opinion, though, in the comments below. Which drivers do you think will be gone? Do you think Bottas is even going to be in Formula 1 next year? Do you think Gasly decides to leave AlphaTauri if he doesn't get that Red Bull seat? Do you think that Perez will stay at Red Bull? Where do you think Albon will be next year? How do you think Alfa Romeo will line up next year? How do you think Williams will line up next year? There is a lot of change that is going to be happening on the grid this season, in my opinion. I'd love to know your opinion too in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. If you could hit subscribe, by the way, just because we're getting towards 3,000. I'd love to hit 3,000 subscribers, possibly before Belgium in a week's time. But you know,